I'm Vin.
I'm sorry.
This is the Protomen. I'm actually very, very excited about this song because this is part of the story, right?
Yeah, he said considering Vin's thoughts about what Willie did using a robot to do his dirty work. He's very interested in hearing what your lyrical breakdown's gonna be.
Yeah.
What?
Nothing. Okay, so I'm very, very excited because we should put this in a playlist and maybe we can look at the order and figure out the order and do it correctly. So
Gary, help me with the list.
this is a story and it's about a guy who creates like alien, it's kind of like a Westworld, like android type things.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a mad scientist. And the last song we reviewed, I think it was Father of Death. I think it was.
Well, one of them, he decided that he was gonna like do the lever and make it come up, and then that thing killed his girl.
Yeah, it killed his girl, and then he killed the protagonist's girlfriend. And he jumps out the window. He's running away because he basically then gets framed for the murder. Mm-hmm. And then he jumped out and he ran away. I'm assuming the Hounds it picks up where we left off before. And it's them chasing him, basically. I'm assuming that's what it's about. So there you go. That's the backdrop. Like I said, we'll create a Protomen. What's the name of the record? The name of the record is Act 2, The Father of Death. So we're going to put a playlist up there, and hopefully we'll have it in order and things of that nature. We didn't listen to the songs in order, but anyway. So this is the Hounds. I'm very, very excited. I encourage you to follow along with the lyrics because I don't know if they're gonna put because like there's story stuff in here that's not part of the music. It's like literally a story. So follow along, ladies and gents. So anyway, this is the Hounds, the Protomen for timely topical political commentary. You can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sorry. This is was this an alliance pick or an individual pick?
Oh no, this is Gabe.
Okay. So
Gary. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways to get your song reviewed. My favorite way is the community option, $1 at the gate. And Patreon, you get hooked up there and all that jazz, and then you can take care of business. What Gabe chose to do was I don't know why you're calling him Gabe.
I know, I just corrected that, but then you
Gary. What Gary chose to do was the capitalist story option. It's $125. Gets you straight to the head of the line, shots to the head of the line, and then your song gets reviewed as an individual. If you were at the $75 tier, or if you did 3 videos for $75 in the previous, because that was the previous price, you get grandfathered in at the $75 price. Also, if you do the new price of $125, if you do that 3 times, then you will be reverse grandfathered in at $75 for life. So, lots of ways, ladies and gentlemen. But without further ado, this is the Hounds. Protomen, let's go.
And go.
If you think that you can run, if you think that you can stand, will you forget who turned this city on? You forget who plugged this city in. They'll not switch it off again. One by one they're shooting in.
This song doesn't sound anything like the song before.
No, it doesn't.
And I love that. I forgot the name of the type of, what is it, Mamba number 5? It's a specific type of...
I get confused on the lyrical content here.
I don't
The
know if you got
story up
confused.
until now, which one was Willie and which one was Thomas Light?
Thomas Light is the good guy that the girl was in love with.
Mm-hmm.
And remember in the previous one, she was telling the bad guy, "You'll never be half the man that he is." Yeah. He went into
And
a
then-
jealous rage, killed her.
Did it say who the bad guy was?
Yeah, it's Willie.
Willie?
Yeah, the
Okay,
guy who's
that's what I thought.
the guy who's
the
talking.
guy that's doing all the talking, saying
Right.
we're going to get them.
Yeah. And everybody trusts him. Yada yada
Right,
yada.
right. They see a leader.
Right. So he pinned the murder on his former friend or partner, whatever you want to call
Yep.
it. And then he. And now he's going to be the champion and deliver
I
the
wonder what
city.
he said out loud that nobody could hear.
Yeah. But I don't know what the name of that type of genre is.
What it sounds like?
Yeah, it's called, I think it's swing.
I was
think
going
the
to
name
say
of the genre.
swing must be part of it.
Yeah, I think it's swing. But, I never really thought, in music class at Truman High School, the horns or whatever. I always thought that was corny. I was like, oh, there's no way to make a horn sound cool. You know what I mean? But like, there have been a couple bands that we've listened to that included a
trumpet or
with a wind section, whatever you call it technically in music, and it sounds really cool. It sounds really good. I love records. There's this band, nobody's probably heard of them, but my brother introduced me to them. It's like my favorite mood band. Receiving End of Sirens is the name of the band. And when I get in a certain mood, they're my favorite band of all time. And they had this record, Between the Heart and the Synapse, where every song was completely different from the other one, but they were all good. And I remember thinking to myself, man, that is extremely difficult to pull off. Like, if you listen to the first Korn record, for example, like, the first Korn record was awesome, but they all kind of bled into each other a little bit. They kind of sounded very similar to each other. They're still great songs, but like, this one is completely different from the one that we listened to before. I was completely unprepared for it, and it's all jazzy. It's almost like this song could have been played like on Broadway, like in a musical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas the first song was like
What would it sound like?
song,
Like the 50s?
Yeah,
the 50s,
like the swing. Yeah. But this song sounded like it's like a legitimate swing song that you would have heard on. The only thing I could compare it to is Mama Number 5, which is obviously nothing close to this band, but 3 or 4 people know what I'm trying to say here. So that is pretty freaking impressive in my opinion. That's really, really hard to pull off. And so this is about everybody going after the good doctor. I think, like, it's clear, especially in the previous song, like, Albert Wiley was eminently jealous of his friend and
Oh,
partner,
yeah.
Dr. Light.
Absolutely.
And when the woman basically said, I will never be with you because you're not half the man that Dr. Light is, and she made this big thing about Light, and he couldn't handle that, and so he killed her because he didn't really love her. He just wanted her to function as a foil to boost his own ego and quell the insecurities that he had about the doctor.
And when she didn't do that,
that was the end of her.
well, she did the opposite.
Right.
Because she hurt his ego.
Right. That was the end of it. Which is that's a thing. You know, people talk about the fragile male ego. This is clear where she declared how superior Homeboy was to her, and then there was another line that was pretty crazy. What kind of man built a machine to kill a girl? Oh, right there. What was her name? And he says, doesn't matter. Now listen, the good doctor has to pay. So it shows, because I said in the previous review, he didn't really love her. And there's always this kind of like, oh, I did love her, but blah, blah, blah. And he didn't really love her. And that's clear because her death means nothing to him. He doesn't even care to mention her name. I think her name was Emily or something like that, wasn't it? I'm not sure. But he doesn't even care to mention her name. I'm going to check on the Father of Death lyrics because I need to remember what her name is for some strange reason.
It was like some, Emily, darling
Emily, yeah.
Right, wow.
So her name was Emily, and he's like, it doesn't matter what her name was because again, she was just there to function to boost his ego, which it's a really scary idea because what if she would have said, yeah, you're better than Dr. Light, and they got together. The entire time, you'd have been like, oh, these two people love each other. When the fact of the matter is, he didn't love her at all. She just functioned as a
that's a pretty scary thought.
Yeah, and it's I remember there was a particular situation, and there was this very young boy, and he's spoiled by his mom, and his mom gives him everything, and the kid gets violent sometimes, and I'm like, that's going to be a really abusive kid. That's going to be a very, very abusive kid, because, and the whole concept of toxic masculinity, I think, we went through this last year where people were going crazy. Like, I don't believe that masculinity in itself is toxic. Obviously not. I'm raising boys. You know what I mean? And they're one of them's pretty rough. One of them's a rough, stereotypical boy, jump off a mountain type guy. But there is, what I was trying to do was explain to people that there is a form of masculinity that is toxic, just like there's a form of femininity that is toxic. And I really believe that's how you create a guy that does something like this. Like from a very, very young age, this kid is not being taught to control himself. He's not being taught to channel his physicality into something positive. And especially the way that he relates to females.
That's what I was going to say. I think that his understanding of what a female is and what her role is in society and in his life is he's mixed up on that. He doesn't, she's not a possession. She's not something that's there to build or boost your ego. Like, not that can't be a piece of it.
It's a byproduct.
Yeah, it's not like this is the total of
Right. So, I'm not saying all men are like this. As a matter of fact, I don't believe that most men are not like this. Most men genuinely do love women and yada yada yada. But there is a form. There are men who the woman. I'm listening to a lot of mobster stuff right now, and some of these mobsters genuinely they love their wife, they love their kids, and all that, and they're true blue. But then there's other ones like John Gotti, for example, whose wife was just there as a figurehead, and he would cheat on her, in broad daylight, so much so that even his fellow mobsters were like, "What are you doing? Because you're disrespecting her in public. Like, can't you be a little bit more
discreet about it?
If you're gonna cheat on her, why don't you do it discreetly? Don't cheat on her in front of everybody, so she looks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then if she ever did that to him, everybody knows she'd be dead.
Yeah.
So with the guy. And so that now the wife is just there as to, compliment your, look, I'm living the American dream, yada, yada, yada. It's that type of stuff where where I think if you're not careful, and here's the thing, some dudes are socialized so narcissistically that they believe that that's love. Like they believe that the ultimate form of love is for the woman to play a role in such a way as to make him look good to other people. And so they genuinely believe that that's love, and that if he responds positively to her doing that that's love and how a relationship is supposed to actually be.
Yeah.
So you know, it's one of those things with boys where you really have to, in my mind anyway, you have to self-consciously let them know you're going to be stronger physically than the woman that you're with. Sorry, y'all, but that 99% of the time, that's true. And so God has given you that strength to protect her, not to abuse her. And you're going to probably a little bit more stoic emotionally than your girl is. And that's not so that you can resent her being so emotionally. It's so that you can provide some sort of stability, because you're supposed to have a calming effect on your wife, and your wife is supposed to have a civilizing effect on you because you're a barbarian before you meet her, and yada yada yada, and explaining these things so that they have a holistic understanding of what their role is and what real love is and what it's not. And so this guy is kind of like the pinnacle of that, man. Like he loved her. Like if you looked at a couple of lines in the previous one, like he was in love with her, yada yada yada. He kills her, and then he basically discards her, like, oh, her name doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I think. And
then it comes back to his ego. Like he's gonna find the one that did it. He's gonna make that person pay.
Right. And then he specifically blames it on the good doctor. Doesn't matter. Now listen, the good doctor has to pay, because I'm assuming that Dr. Light was a very famous, you know, whatever. So now he gets to play the Superman role. In because she wouldn't look at him as a Superman, so now the entire city's looking at him as a Superman, because he's going to go after the good doctor. And what type of guy creates a tool just to kill his girlfriend, and all this other craziness that he's saying. And I really think this is a fictional story, sure, but it really speaks to some, and it doesn't matter how many times I say some, there's going to be some defensive dude that's going to say, you're a social justice warrior. No, it's just that I've ran into some of these men in life, you know, and most of the dudes I run into are not like that. They're just doing their best to try to love their girls and do what they can do for their families. But there are some men who this is the priority. It's not the well-being of the girl. It's not what you can give the girl, how you can love her, serve her, lift her up. It's about how she fits into your little diorama of a life that you've constructed since you were 9, and everybody's roles are there for that purpose. And I think, you know, it's pretty crazy, but it's being reflected in this guy's story for sure. Oh
yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of the remember there was like that group of people that I think they were like upset that they had been rejected by certain females.
Yeah, the incel thing.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, is they were rejected by certain females, and it's like involuntarily celibate, I think is what they were called, and you know, they engendered a lot of resentment, and you know, some of them had, like, one guy that went around and killed a bunch of girls, like he's like their folk hero or whatever. And I think some of that, you know, is stereotyped and hyperbolized, but like your point is well made. Like that's a very good example. Like these dudes who don't know how to relate to women well, and you know, and those guys usually do not do very well with rejection. Obviously, in this one, he didn't. They read way too much into, you know, rejection. They don't look at it like this one female is not. You know, they're looking at it like an entire class of women. Millions of them have rejected them, and all the rest of it. And they also, because we knew one.
Oh, yeah.
We knew one. He was a pretty unattractive guy, I mean, I would say. And on top of that, he had such a horrible attitude. Like, he was such an insecure, you know, man that he almost like wasn't even a definition of a man at that point. And he had a lot of resentment. You could tell he had a lot of resentment toward women. Anytime you said anything about empowering women or celebrating women, he would get angry. I mean, the guy, even the Bible.
I know. The Bible's. I was gonna think he sat down and had a big conversation with some of the younger girls. Remember that? And he was talking all about the role of women and what they were supposed to be doing. Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah,
oh God, it was so terrible.
Yeah. They all came back to me and they're like, "Hey,
horrified."
And I was like, you know, and we kind of had that type of dynamic where, like, you know, like he was constantly putting himself in a situation where he would get compared to me, and it wasn't very favorable, and he's just a very, very miserable guy. Good night. I mean, the reason I'm laughing is because, like, he actually would have been able to. I mean, God bless him. He eventually ended up with somebody. You know, those dating sites. I'm not being funny, like, because I'm not sure that this guy is still on the planet if he didn't find that girl. Like, that's how dark this guy was.
Yeah, I just don't know if she, I think about her and I'm like, I hope she's okay.
Well, I mean, she married him, and it's evangelicalism, so they're gonna be all right. You know, so you know, maybe, you know, I mean, I don't know. I try not to think about that too much, but yeah, I see what you're saying. But yeah, it's just very amazing to me. Like, this is kind of set in a dystopian future, but it doesn't matter if it's in the past, the future, caveman, you know, spaceships. Like that movie Cloud Atlas was really cool because Cloud Atlas is like all over the place. Sometimes it's like 300 years into the future, sometimes it's 500 years into the past, and it just shows how it doesn't matter what time or period or place, human beings are human beings, and it's always going to be pretty much the same template over and over again. And this is no different. You've got the jealousy angle, you've got the rival brothers angle, you know, the Cain and Abel, Jacob and Esau, Pharaoh, Moses type thing.
He said, stop. When I say he was a monster, when I set fire to his name, it doesn't matter where you hear it from, whether truth or lies, it gets said all the same. Like that whole idea of...
Yeah. The power of the media to shape...
Power of words.
People's perception is unbelievable to me. Like, you know...
Yeah.
I shot on the Middle America forum on Facebook. I said, you know, this whole thing about Nancy Pelosi and we're supposed to be angry because she's talking about ice cream. I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's overblown. You know, we all know she makes over $100 million. She's got $100 million net worth. Like, she's for what she's supposed to do, get on TV and pretend like she's like eating cardboard.
Right.
Like, we know that you make $100 million. Like, you have $100 million. Yeah. Obviously, it's going to be about ice cream. But then Trump made this giant ad about it, and everybody's saying, "Oh my God, she's Marie Antoinette." You know, Marie Antoinette. They were like, "Let them eat cake," you know, and everybody was starving to death. And it's like, we're not in that situation where people are starving to death. Like, the common people were not getting $1,200 checks and having their mortgages and their student loans suspended for half of a year and all that. Like, stop it. You know what I mean? Like, and the other thing is, they executed Marie Antoinette. So, like, there's a part of it that's really insidious too. Like, what are you guys doing here? Like, we're in a pretty crazy, hysterical moment in our country, and you're going to compare her.
Stuff like that?
You're going to compare her to Marie Antoinette, who got guillotined. Like, that's not a good play. That's not a good play, especially coming from Republicans, who are the party of the rich and the 1% and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you've got, you know, Trump was talking to a doctor, and he was talking about all these different methodologies, and he brought up the disinfectant thing. And now these people have blown this thing up. Oh my God, Trump is
telling
saying,
people to inject themselves with Lysol.
Yeah, and now Lysol like released something that said, please don't ingest any of our stuff and yada yada yada. It's like, come on, like, really? Really?
Well, I do think that it's important for Lysol to put that out because of the way that people are twisting Trump's words.
Well, right.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because those discussions are like 3-hour discussions.
Yeah.
And you have to data mine what you're going to talk about. And that's why CNN, when Trump was basically talking about a form of Medicare for all, they didn't run a story on it, because obviously that would make make Trump look very favorable to a lot of young people, and make Biden look unfavorable, because 2 days previous Biden had just said, "Hey, I'm going to veto Medicare for all," and then you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and now here's Trump. So it was one line taken out of a 3-hour conversation, and now people are trying to say, "Oh, Trump is telling people to like, come on, bro." Like, really? But people really are taking that thing and
he
running
never
with it.
said... He wasn't talking to the people.
Oh, he was looking at the doctor. It's like, right? Isn't that what we're doing? Like, obviously they had a conversation before. You know, and then, of course, Trump... You know, because of all the backlash, he's saying, "Oh, I was being sarcastic." Like, I wouldn't even have said that. I would have said, "No, I was talking to the doctor. We had this conversation before. Technically, anything that kills bacteria is called a disinfectant. You know, like, come on." But this is the power of the media to shape people's reality. Like Nancy Pelosi is now Marie Antoinette, and Trump is now instructing people to, and people are spending all this time and hours on it. Like, people were asking me to shoot a video about the ice cream stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to shoot a video about ice cream. Nancy Pelosi was digging in her fridge saying, what would I do without ice? I'm not doing that. Like, no.
Why? Why wouldn't you shoot it and be like, what is the big deal about this?
Because to me, like, to even go to the effort of shooting an entire video would be to validate the silly narrative that really most of the time came from the right and also came from far left bitter Bernie supporters who are angry because they're blaming, you know, Pelosi for, because she's the pinnacle of the establishment or whatever. And I just, you know, that stuff just bothers me. Like, I don't want to perpetuate that stuff. I'm not going to shoot a video about it. But
I disagree with you, but sure.
Well, yeah, you disagree with me all the time. I mean, you could shoot a video about Nancy Pelosi and the ice cream. Middle America is open to you. It's not just it's not just for me.
I don't have any interest in it either. But
it just amazes me how quickly people can be so manipulated by the media.
I totally
people
agree.
like, because I remember when I first saw the Pelosi thing, I was like, oh, she likes ice cream. But then all this framing around, oh my gosh, she's terrible, she's out of touch. Really, a person with a net worth of $100 million is out of touch? You don't say. Like is anybody? And then people started working up all this faux outrage about this woman eating her ice cream. Like, let the woman eat her ice cream in peace. I mean, if you sold your soul to the devil for $100 million, the least that you could have is some good ice cream. She's gonna need it.
Oh, babe.
So that's just how I feel about it. But anyway, this guy is really insightful because he's really. People are like, what does this have to do with the song? Because in the song, the whole point of the song is how he's relating to the media. How he's framing this story, how he's lying.
To deceive the people.
How he's deceiving the people, how he's truly the bad guy, but he's presenting himself as the good guy, and the people just follow it in this herd mentality. Like, don't you think that this has happened to you at some point? In your existence, like in your exposure to the media, you don't think that you've ever ended up cheering for a bad guy and villainizing a good guy based on how... Of course they have. Of course. So, like, look, here's a hint. Anytime the majority of your group is saying something in response to one media story, it's 9 times out of 10, this probably is going on. Like, you know, like when people talk about, you know, Bin Laden and Al Qaeda, and people were saying, oh, they're horrible terrorists, and then the entire line from the right wingers was that they hate us because of our freedom. That was Fox News. That was the story that was being told. These damn Arabs, they hate us because of our freedom. And it has nothing to do with unilateral support of Israel and having American embassies and our war dogs all over the Middle East and setting up in their holy land and saying there's nothing you can do about it because we're in with the Saudi. None of that has
something to do with that.
None of that has to do with. No, it's just they hate our freedom. We want freedom fries. And people went along with it. They really, you had millions of people watching Fox News saying, man, them damn Arabs, they hate freedom. So I think this is a very, very important song because of where we're at right now. Like, we know what happened because we're like looking over the shoulder of this like sort of omniscient, narrator. So we know the true story.
Yeah, I think too. The other thing too is when he says something before he goes on camera, which we don't know what he says, but it kind of puts it out there too that there's two stories. Like there's one thing that they say when they're off camera, and there's another thing that the media says when they're on camera, which
right.
I mean,
well, that's what Hillary said. She said that there's a persona that you have outside and a persona that you have behind closed doors. And she was saying this to Goldman Sachs, who paid her like $500K for a 25-minute speech. It's a pretty good margin.
Yeah.
right here, it says, at this very moment, his moment of glory, he wished he could be out in the streets of the city. He wished he could hear the hum of 1,000 tubes powering the screen, popping to life and warming up simultaneously. Wished he could feel the wave of sound as they drew the attention of every person within the walls of the city. His city. He wished he could float above the streets as every person walked from their homes, left their dinners, their polite conversation, their lives. Wished he could be there as they filed out in the streets, fixed their eyes on the giant screen and waited. So, like, it's all about you, man, and a person's
Your moment.
desire for personal glory
Yep.
turns you into a murderous, lying traitor.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. That's really, really powerful, because there's a lot of people that are like that. You find somebody, you're jealous of them, they don't deserve the glory they're getting. That's the other thing. They don't deserve it, I do. Mm-hmm. You know, you kind of see it a little bit on YouTube too, where you have, like, you know, when YouTube did the whole demonetization thing last year, unless you hit a certain metric, and you had people saying, this is unjust, it's unfair, we deserve this, we deserve that. It's like, what do you mean you deserve it? Like, this company is providing you a platform to make your content and make it visible to everybody else. What do you mean?
Right.
Nobody was giving this to us 20 years ago. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm saying this as a person who gets all of our stuff demonetized. This is going to be demonetized on YouTube. Like, YouTube doesn't owe me that. Like, it's just, it's weird to me. Like, people, their sense of entitlement. And this guy feels like he's entitled to glory. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the person, I see this the most with the person who has to play second fiddle.
Yeah.
The guy who's right there,
yeah.
But then there's another person that just outshines them.
And they believe that they should be the top person, and that they have equal abilities, like the same abilities as that person.
Yeah.
And they don't, and maybe it's a little bit of, like, misunderstanding of who you are, but you think that you're, you know.
And sometimes it's true. Sometimes, like, for example, you have Dick Cheney and George Bush. Well, Dick Cheney was obviously more qualified. He was obviously more intellectual than Bush, yada, yada, yada. But Bush had the charisma that appealed to the average right-wing American, and Cheney was just almost robotic and android-like. So he was never going to get that type of popularity. So sometimes the guy is right. Like, I would be better than this guy. Like, whoever, I'll tell you what, whoever is vice president for Mr. Biden, that's going to be true. Like, I could eeny, meeny, miny, moe anybody in Washington and say that young woman or that young man is more qualified than Stephen Hawking's more qualified than Biden, and he's dead. So sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's this guy or this girl is more charismatic than you, and so people are just drawn to them, and so I mean, it is what it is. You know, we're watching the Jordan documentary with Scottie Pippen, you know, and he said he had surgery on his foot, and he's like, I'm not going to screw up my personal summer, so he let the season go on, and the Bulls are really struggling, and I think part of that was a little bit of
he didn't get his surgery on time.
Yeah, I think him sitting out and the Bulls struggling is his way of saying, hey, I guess Jordan isn't as good as you guys think he is, huh? Maybe he needs some help.
Maybe you should pay me more.
Maybe you should pay me more. You know, he was getting pennies on the dollar.
He was, but I'm kind of back and forth on that, because that's the thing that he agreed upon. He agreed upon that price for 7 years, and people said that was a bad idea, but he made that decision.
And the thing is, Jordan also was not paid, according to his value either, in that era. Mm-hmm. So I get it, but I think it must be very, very hard to play that role. You know,
absolutely.
It's interesting. Like, for me growing up, I felt that way about my little brother. So I used to feel like, I never felt like I was in my older brother's shadow. Well, we were in high school one time, and he was really doing his acting thing. It was like, oh, are you, so-and-so's brother or whatever. But for the most part, I had my own thing. I was in sports. I was winning, doing taekwondo. I was doing pretty good with my sports, and that was kind of my niche. My older brother wasn't a big sports guy. My younger brother was, in my mind at the time, too soft to play any sports. So I always felt like I had my
He
own.
went on to become a Marine.
Right. And my older brother went on to be he's
do big things
he's
too.
doing big things in the world. This is true. So I never really felt like I was in anybody's shadow, and like it was weird. Like when I was on a baseball team, Tristan, like I would say to this day, he was the best baseball player I ever ran into in my life. Like he was it was a weird dynamic though, because people were. Again, I was probably a little bit more charismatic, but I would always say Tristan was the best, and I believe he just objectively was the best. He was the best. So there was none of that jealousy happening because we were genuinely best friends. We loved each other, like genuinely. He taught me everything I knew about baseball, so I wasn't trying to be nice.
Yeah.
And so there are very few relationships where that's really like that, where the two top dogs are not fighting for any of that type of supremacy. Everybody knows their role and they're good to go. You see it with Brady and Belichick. Like it's just all through history. People have a very, very hard time being number two. They just do. You know? I think the best case scenario is a number two who's very charismatic and very self-contained and knows who he is. I think that's probably the best possible scenario, but it's very, very rare. Because usually the number one guy, by default, is a charismatic guy, because most of charisma is confidence. So if you've mastered the sport or mastered the craft in any way, that's when you walk into the room that you're the best at it, you're automatically going to carry a certain type of charisma. But this guy is just this guy is honestly the epitome of everything that I cannot stand in men when I see him. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's just the epitome of just ugh. There's a lot of variations of dude that I can tolerate, but like that guy, like the last 3 or 4 months, like I couldn't stand the sight of the guy. It was just pathetic, man. And to me, it's like ugh, like that type of weakness. And I think it's a person. Obviously, as a Christian, it's a personality flaw. But that type of weakness, I just have a very, very hard time with.
I know. I knew I was kind of having a problem too because I kept thinking about that button. Anyway.
Button.
You'll figure it out. Anyway.
Button. No,
so what do you give it?
Button. You know
No.
I'm pushed down.
No. You'll figure it out. Okay. What do you give the song?
Button. No.
Yeah.
Tell me in my ear. Huh. Oh. The struggle.
Real. It's real.
Shout out to... Hey, you're a bitch, but I hope you found some peace.
Yeah.
Oh my lord.
Anyway.
And let me not say that. I'm stuck for a while.
So what do you give this song?
I really liked it. I'm gonna give it a 9.2. I know that you're not going to rate it pretty high because it's swingy and it's not what you were expecting, especially from the other one, so I'm preparing myself.
It's a 7.
Alright, 9.5 from me. 9.5. Please excuse, what's the guy's name? Gabriel?
No,
Gabriel,
it's not Gabe, it's Gary.
Gary, please excuse my wife's music illiteracy. Huh?
Story's good.
Stop being jealous.
I was actually bummed out that the story was not going to keep going.
Jealousy is for weak people.
Yeah.
Don't be a jealous bitch. Alright, Vin out.
Story out.
Gone.